Welcome to Accotink Unitarian Universalist Church live stream worship service. I am Reverend Alexa and my pronouns are she and her. I'm happy to be your pastoral care minister, to have been your pastoral care minister for this church year. Accotink UU Church is a welcoming and inclusive community that seeks to create a more just and compassionate world through our actions to bring about justice and by honoring the web of nature of which we are a part. All are welcome here in this justice-seeking, earth-healing community of faith. You are welcome, no matter whom you love, no matter your identity or heritage, no matter your beliefs or background, no matter your means or abilities. You are welcome here in this religious community. We also welcome the ancestors and descendants. We welcome the people who made each of us, the biological ancestors, spiritual ancestors, teachers, and guides. We welcome those who imagined and made our congregation possible. We welcome the ancestral people of this land and recall that our church, like all of Burke, rests on the unceded territory of the Manahoac tribe of the Great Sioux Nation. We seek healing with the people of this land whose bodies and spirits live on in their descendants, many of whom are members of the Monacan Indian Nation, the Potawatomi Indian Tribe of Virginia, and the Piscataway Indian Nation. We honor the ancestors as we move towards healing so that all the descendants together shall one day know full justice. With this, let us welcome the longings and hopes of all the descendants that we might live for them today. And today I want to particularly welcome the dads in our midst. I was raised in a two-person family, my dad and me. I love dads, and I want you to know that you hold up at least half the world for so many people. I now invite Brenna Clanton, whose pronouns are she and her. She is our worship associate for today, and she will continue our welcome.
All are encouraged to get a virtual name tag. If your full name does not appear on screen, simply locate the Zoom chat box by moving your cursor. Open the chat and type in the name you would like to appear. One of our greeters will adjust your name on screen. If you are new to Accotink and would like to talk more about this church, please be sure to reach out to me, our minister, Reverend Pippin, or a member of the board. Contact information is posted on our website at www.accotinkuu.org. On our website, you can check the online order of service on the worship section of our webpage. While you are on the website, be sure to check our events page for upcoming virtual gatherings and other news. I now invite you to close your other windows or apps and devices. Take a deep breath and center yourself for worship. Please light your chalice with me to the words of Edward Everett Hale. I am one. I am only one, but I am one. I cannot do everything, but I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do the something that I can do.
In the words of Christian Schmidt, Reverend Christian Schmidt, this is a call to worship for the joyful, the brokenhearted, the fearful, the exhausted. For whatever you are feeling right now, may this be a place for you to find what you need. You are welcome here in this gathering where we come to feed our souls, heal our hurts, and just be together. For too long now, we've experienced the things that divide us: poverty and oppression, unjust laws and policies, violence and imprisonment. We cannot fix these in a day or even a year, but we can fix them, and we must, because we know that despite divisions, despite the triumphs or defeats of candidates and parties, our destinies, all of them remain deeply intertwined. Liberation must be for all people if it is truly liberation. As long as one soul suffers needlessly, we cannot rest. As long as our planet screams out in pain, so will all who live on her. So for all the feelings, the emotions, the pains and hurts, the joy and celebration that you have in your heart and body and mind today, you are welcome here. May you find rest and renewal, partners for the journey, time to contemplate, and energy for action. Let us worship. The next time I'm with you will be Independence Day. Then we'll explore Juneteenth, some American history, and the 4th of July. Today's prayer, out of the many, many things that we could be praying about today, is focused on pride and is based on the words of Reverend Lori Gorgas Tlaban. So we will also be continuing the conversation about pride in the coffee hour, and I hope that you'll join us then. Loving Spirit, we say this prayer for those who have lived their lives in closets of shame, for those who furtively visited the bars where nobody knew your name, for the Stonewall riot and the fierce trans women who fought, for HIV and AIDS, which still take far too many too young too soon, for those killed at the Pulse Club, whose memory rings strong for so many gone. So many never lived to see out gay kids singing on TV, out gay people serving in the military, marriage equality, families formed by intention, genders claimed by right, legitimation of any gender identity or none. We pray for all our siblings of the rainbow, surviving, living life out in the open with pride. Amen.
Our reading today is titled The Traveler. Once there was a woman who was very wise. Not only was she wise, but she exuded wisdom, and everyone who met her felt immediately that she would have the answer to their most important life questions. She had lived in the city on the mountain, the beautiful city on the mountain, for many years, but now it was time for her to move to the beautiful city by the sea. As she was traveling from the city on the mountain down to the city by the sea, she met a traveler. This traveler was making the opposite move from the city on the sea to the city on the mountain. The traveler hailed her and said, "Oh, wise woman, please tell me what type of people can I expect to find in the city on the mountain? Are they kind and helpful, or withdrawn, or even mean?" The wise woman said, "I will answer your question, but please first answer mine. I am moving to the city by the sea. What sort of people have you there? Were they kind and helpful, pleasant to spend time with, or were they withdrawn, unfriendly, or even mean?" The traveler said, "Oh, they are not kind at all. They're quite unhelpful at every turn." The wise woman replied, "You will find that the city on the mountain has the same type of people. I don't think you will like them at all." And they parted ways. A few minutes later, a second traveler greeted the wise woman. This traveler, too, was moving from the city by the sea to the city on the mountain. This traveler, too, asked the wise woman, "Please tell me, what type of people can I expect to find in the city on the mountain? Are they kind and helpful, or withdrawn, or even mean?" And the wise woman said, "I will answer your question, but please first answer mine. I am moving to the city by the sea. What sort of people have you found there?" The traveler said, "Oh, they are wonderful people. They are kind and helpful at every turn. I am so sad to be leaving them." The wise woman replied, "You will find that the city on the mountain has the same type of people. My heart is broken to leave them, and yet What you tell me of the people in the beautiful city by the sea lets me know I will also be happy there and will find many wonderful friends over time. And they parted ways.
About 20 years ago, I started actually closer to 25 now. I started attending my first UU congregation. I was recently divorced, flat broke, and I didn't feel like I had much to give. I was drained, and putting one foot in front of the other was about as much as I could do. As some of you know, I've been an active Quaker before that, but I was looking for music and song, some external inspiration, since what I had going on in my head was distressing and sad. So I started attending a UU congregation, and I got that music that I wanted, and I heard some good preaching, and then I joined that congregation, and things were pretty good. But you see, I had this concern. Were they going to want me to give more than I could give? More money, more time, more energy. I didn't feel like I had anything to give, and that was my truth at that moment. Because I love little kids and there were none in my life right then, I eventually responded positively to a flyer for nursery volunteers that said something like, "Want to read to a 2-year-old while they sit on your lap." It was great spending time with the little kids who knew nothing of my deep sorrow. But I didn't plunge into that experience. I held back. I didn't put down my roots there. I was afraid they would ask me to give something I just couldn't give. Eventually, an opportunity to switch congregations came. My then boyfriend told me that the UU community he was involved with, where he'd raised his first family, was wonderful, and he wanted to keep going there. Since my roots weren't all that deep in my congregation, I agreed to start attending his church. We've raised our son in that new to me place, and I've never looked back. But was the church different, or was I? I ask you to reflect back on that story Brenna shared at this just a few minutes ago. Remember that wise woman? She knew that the people themselves defined the type of experience they would have in a new town by the way that they looked at it. They brought an energy or a vision or preconceived notions of how it would be for them. And that would be the frame from within which they experienced the new town. So, okay, I arrived at my UU place, and again, I wasn't ready to fully commit. I did sign the book, but I held back a part of my energy and commitment. After some time, I was ready to dabble, dangling my feet, dipping in and out. I knew I didn't want to be back in the nursery since by then I had a toddler and I wanted some grown-up time. So I helped draft the language for the congregation's new covenant. I helped host an auction event or two. I did a task. Tasks are great. They can really help you figure out what you want to do. They can help you make friends in a congregation. They're great. So I did another task. And eventually the minister called me up and asked me if I wanted to be on the worship committee. Wow, the worship committee. And the minister asked me, did I want to stop dabbling and sort of kind of maybe commit? Going into the worship committee was the best thing I did in those early years, attending what I still feel is my home church. I walked into the first meeting that I attended. Every person there was what we'd have called an elder in my friends' meeting. The average age was well over 60, probably much closer to 70. And the average duration of membership at the church was 30 or more years. I was in my young 40s with a young child, and I was a new member. But every single one of those people welcomed me into the group. They listened to my ideas, they shared tasks with me, and now all these years later, I can say that that is when I became a member. It was not when I signed the book, but when I moved past dabbling and committed to make that congregation my home, with the work and rewards that that gave me. Home, you know, the place where you're always welcome and where the people you love live. the place it's safe to be yourself, a place you can welcome others into, and the place where you may have to take out the trash. So now I ask you, why did you join your church? Answers might be to provide an extended family to help me raise my children, or to deepen my spiritual life, or I love the sense of community in the worship services here. I have never heard anyone say to volunteer here, to find something productive to do with my extra time, or even because I love doing X, being with kids, working on services, pouring coffee, and I figured I could do more of it here. Yet, you often hear the words, volunteers are the lifeblood of this church. Without volunteers, there's no religious education program. There are no sermons when the minister isn't in the pulpit. You wouldn't have a worship associate helping me today. In these COVID days, there would be no Zoom and hence no service at all. How can your personal goals, which probably don't include volunteering, and the needs of the church for volunteers both be satisfied? The answer is that volunteering must be meaningful and touch the reasons that members join in the first place. I believe volunteering can help provide you with more extended family and friends, help deepen your spiritual life, help build the community you love, and connect you with Sunday services. In short, the rewards of volunteering must match the reasons that you are a member. If not, you will either feel oppressed or leave. I've seen it happen. A wonderful person comes to church and gets sucked into deep volunteering way too soon. Before you know it, they aren't getting their spiritual cup filled. Quite the reverse. Then they leave. Is volunteering here in this church up to the challenge? First, let me say, volunteering isn't work. That may sound like an oxymoron or something, but why do I say that? Let me give you some language of the standard workplace translated into the language and concepts of volunteering. So over here, we have work, and here is the church translation. Product, process, job to fill, opportunity for involvement, delegate, empower, direction, request or opportunity, productive, mindful, hierarchical, relational, worker, volunteer. Unload this task. I've heard it at work. Invite a volunteer to engage their interest and desire to help. If you even think the word unload, it will come through. Helpful suggestions are generally viewed as helpful. Helpful suggestions framed as someone should suggestions, not backed up with an offer to help implement them, are often viewed as just creating more work in a church context. Take personal notes and look attentive. Maybe knit or doodle. And with volunteering, you get to do what you want. Do you want spiritual growth? Maybe that means you work with the children in religious education classes, or help your worship committee create worship services, or mindfully tend the gardens, or serve as a worship associate on Sundays. Is community growth your goal? Maybe you can welcome people through your membership committee. Maybe social action is your passion. Maybe you'd like a one-time commitment and helping with a specific project. It's all sort of like Cinderella and the shoe that fits. I urge you to keep trying till you find the fit between the foot and the shoe. You might build an area of interest or try something new and develop new skills. All of these shorter commitments are great for visitors considering a deeper commitment to and connection with your church. And you know the day may not be today, but sometime after the doors are open again, you, a visitor, maybe somebody newer to the church, may feel inspired to bring in some cookies to share or chat with the person doing dishes and pick up a dish rag and do the drying. Perhaps the most important difference between work and church activities is that you kind of have to do what your boss told you to do. You do not have to do what someone asks you to do at church. No is a fine answer. No, not now is a good answer. No, I can't do that, but I could do something else is a splendid answer. And yes, of course, is a really fine answer. So last, thanks is always what volunteers need. Thanks from every one of us to every one of us. Thanks for making the coffee when that happens again. Thanks for shoveling the snow. Thanks for finding that perfect song last week. Thanks for running that wonderful auction. Thanks and appreciations and kudos and acknowledgement and love. Pat yourself on the shoulder as you say it. Yeah, do it. Pat yourself. I can't see you all, but I hope that you are thanking yourself for what you give to this beloved congregation. In short, work is work, and church work is ministry. Work may not change your life, but volunteering at church will. Let me tell you a story. I knew a septuagenarian when I first joined my home church I was just describing, who had little computer experience and who actively and eagerly volunteered to be the head of the tech committee at our church. We were friends, and I asked her why she wanted to do that. Actually, I may have said, Janet, why do you want to do that? Her answer was that she believed in stretching herself. And by running that committee, she would have new stuff to talk with her grandkids about. She also shared that she had started out her career in the federal government as a file clerk. She wasn't a confident speaker or leader at that time, but she started volunteering at church. In her 40s, as a widow, she learned that she could run a meeting. She could report on what had happened, and she didn't need to be anxious about sharing her ideas. She had good ideas, and actually she was terrific with numbers. By the time of her death, she had taken on most of the jobs in the church at one point or another. And back at work, eventually, she put herself in for a promotion. And she got that promotion, and then another and another. She ended her federal career doing exactly what she wanted to do. And as I think about it, she was a lot like the second traveler in Brenna's story. She brought that positive energy to each place she went and was a blessing to that congregation through her many years of membership. And I know she was good at her job at work too. She brought optimism and commitment to her volunteer activities and a big, big laugh. Instead of talking about how to run meetings or the skills that people need to lead, I think I want to talk about commitment, because that's what Janet had. I'd like to return to The Little Prince reading. The punchline of that book for me has always been that the prince fell in love with his rose because it needed his care. A virtuous cycle of care and need and love was created. Just like the little prince and his rose, she was a bit demanding, but it was the time that he had given to her that opened his heart to her and turned her into family. So it can be in this beloved community. Here is part of what I look for in a leader. Make sure everyone is fed at your meetings. Have some kind of a centering to begin. A check-in is a way for all of you to care for each other. Honoring time commitments shows respect for participants. Once again, you can't say thank you too often. Notice what other hardworking volunteers are doing and compliment them, and appreciate each other. I think all of you, each of you, could be a leader looked at that way. Based on the words of Reverend John Wolfe about why we support our church and why leadership here is so important, I'll share this. There is only one reason for joining a UU church. That is to support it. You want to support it because it stands against superstition and fear, because it points to what is noblest and best in human life, because it is open to men and women of whatever race, creed, color, gender identity, sexual orientation, class, or national origin. You want to support a UU church because it has a free pulpit, because you can hear ideas expressed there which would cost any other minister his or her job. You want to support it because it is a place where children can come without being saddled with guilt or terrified by some celestial peeping Tom. where they can learn that religion is for joy, comfort, for gratitude, and love. You want to support it because it is a place where walls between people are torn down rather than built up, because it is a place for the religious displaced persons of our time, the refugees from mixed marriages, unwanted free thinkers, and those who insist against orthodoxy that they must, where they must work out their own beliefs. You want to support a Unitarian Universalist church because it is more concerned with human beings than with dogmas, because it searches for the holy rather than dwells upon the depraved, because it calls no one sinner, yet knows how deep is the struggle and how great is the hunger for what is good. You want to support a Unitarian Universalist church because it can laugh, because it insults neither your intelligence nor your conscience, and because it calls you to worship what is truly worthy of your sacrifice. Amen, Ashe, and blessed be. And now for our chalice extinguishing. Though we will extinguish our chalice flame, we carry within us what we kindled, the light of inspiration, warmth of compassion, the fire of commitment. May we bring these gifts into our lives and share them radiantly out in the world.
I invite you to join me now in our community blessing with these words of David Bumbaugh. This church is dedicated to the proposition that behind all our differences and beneath all our diversity, there is a unity which makes us one and binds us forever together in spite of time, death, and the space between the stars. We pause now in silent witness to that unity.
I will end with these again with these wonderful words from Edward Everett Hale, which say so much about today's service. I am one, but I am one. I cannot do everything, but I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do the something that I can do.